Welcome to Based on a Book, the podcast that does not condone arson. I'm Lindsey, and I have fully embraced my eccentric recluse era.
I'm Crystal, and I would lock the gate too if I had one.
And I'm Keri, and to stick to the theme of our last week's episode, you can't eat at everybody's house.
That's right. This week, we're stepping into the eerie, unsettling world of Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle and its 2018 film adaptation. So, for those of you who don't know, We Have Always Lived in the Castle was released in 1962 and was Jackson's final work before her death in 1965. Some of you may be familiar with her work because she also wrote The Haunting of Hill House, which we didn't cover, but we sure did talk about when we covered
Yeah.
Blind Manor.
Honestly, we should cover. We really should cover it.
We probably will.
Season 3.
Yep.
Stay tuned. The novel is written in the voice of 18-year-old Mary Catherine Blackwood, who lives with her agoraphobic sister and sick uncle in their family estate. 6 years before the story takes place, the Blackwood family experienced a tragedy that left the 3 survivors isolated from their small village. So, if you love gothic horror with a side of unease, then grab your sugar bowl and join us as we unravel the mystery of the Blackwood sisters.
Should you grab the sugar bowl?
Maybe not. Maybe skip the sugar.
Yeah.
Well, first, we're going to go with ratings, and I want to hear from you, Crystal.
I knew it. You know what? I'm just going to make this short and sweet. I give it 3.95 buried treasures. I couldn't bring myself to give it a 4, but it was real damn close.
Okay. Keri?
I feel that. I gave it $4 silver.
Oh my gosh.
What?
I gave it 3.5 silver dollars.
Oh my, you know what, Lindsey? You know what's so crazy is I had something different right before this, and I changed it at the last minute, and I literally thought in my head, Lindsey's gonna have the same exact rating. She's gonna use silver dollars. I swear on my life, I literally thought that right before we started recording. I was like, she's gonna have the same rating as me. I just know it. I really did think that.
I almost changed
so
mine
weird.
too. I
That is
literally
so
almost changed mine.
I changed mine last minute to buried treasures, actually. I have written down silver dollars, so.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
We are just ridiculous when we all just tend to think so similarly.
Yeah, we were on the same page.
Especially the more episodes that we do.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Yeah. I was like, I kind of low-key, I was like, I wonder if I could guess which one they're going to pick. I kind of wanted to all be the same. But I listened to the audio. The narrator is Bernadette Dune, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the narration was so good. Like, I cannot express how good the narration was on this audiobook. And the book, like, I totally understand what you mean, Crystal, about the 3.95. I was so curious how you were going to feel because I know it does that thing where, like, you're not getting this, like, satisfying... at least in my interpretation of it, you don't get this satisfying feeling from it, like the ending, a satisfying ending. And I knew, like, you kind of need, like,
I kind of hate that.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm so curious what Crystal's going to think. But I think for me, like, you get to build your, like, own interpretation. It feels like almost like at the end, like a folktale about, like, 2 sisters in the end, and you don't know it until you're done reading it.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that's why I really liked it a lot.
This kept me, I don't want to say it kept me guessing because it really didn't. It was a little on the predictable side.
Yeah.
But it kept me wanting to know more. What are they going to do next? How are they going to respond to this? What's going, and it, like, I kept turning the page, even though, like you said, it doesn't really give that, like, wrapped in a bow satisfying conclusion that I have a tendency to love. but it still left me like it. I think you're right. Like it kind of left me with that. Like these end up being the two witchy sisters that live in the house in the woods. That,
Yeah.
like, and I love that. I love that. So the only reason it's not a 4 really is because I didn't get the boat ending. But
Yeah, I agree. What did you think, Lindsey?
That was pretty accurate from both of you. That's honestly how I felt. And at the end, like Crystal said, where it feels like they're the two witchy sisters from the stories, like then they become scary stories to tell in the dark.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
exactly. That's what it felt like, especially when, you know, it's like they're like the talk of the town in this house in the end. Like we're going to get into it and stuff more, but I don't know. And it's like, what are we like as I'm reading, I'm like, what are we going to get to? Like, what is the outcome that's going to happen here? And then when you finally get to the end, you're just like, oh, that like we're getting like a tale told to us of like the
It's the origin story.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think in two, like even in the very, very beginning of the book, Mary Cat's telling us this story of how the townsfolk, like they call each other, they call them names, they tease the family, they sing these taunting little songs to them, and they're already like they already are kind of the like urban legend of their town,
Yeah.
and then they just end up the urban legend of it really it earned every last bit of that 3.95.
Yeah. It's just weird, but it's like good and I don't know, I can't describe it. It's just bizarre.
It's almost unsatisfying in the best way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Totally.
Chaotic good.
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think it's about time to get into it then before we start saying anything and ruining things.
Yeah. Almost did.
Almost did.
So, dear listeners, consider this your official invitation to the Blackwood estate. But beware, once you step inside, there's no turning back. We're about to discuss We Have Always Lived in the Castle in all its glory, which means spoilers ahead. If you haven't read the book or watched the movie yet and want to keep mystery intact, now's the time to retreat to your reading nook. Otherwise, pour yourself a cup of tea and let's get into it.
Already got mine right here.
I almost got tea. I have water.
Should have brought all of our tea.
Right. So, this episode does contain themes and scenes that may be distressing for some, such as murder and poisoning, psychological manipulation, gaslighting, violence, destruction of property, arson, mental illness, unreliable narration, bullying, death and grief, and themes of horror. So, fun. So, like I said before, the story is told from the perspective of Mary Catherine Blackwood, also known as Mary Cat, who is played by, I want to say her name is Thaisa Farmiga. I really like her sister, and she does really well too.
Yeah. You know what? And I knew the girl that's playing Mary Catherine because I like to go in kind of blind into these movies, especially like not knowing who's like playing what character and stuff, and going into it. And the second I saw she was playing, I was like, oh, I know this is about to be good. I know this is about to be good because she's from American Horror Story, and I was like, oh, she's about to nail this. She is about to nail this character right now because she always plays like really weird stuff, and especially in American Horror Story.
Her sister is Vera Farmiga, and she plays, I can't think of her name, from The Conjuring, the main lady from The Conjuring.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
And then her sister was in, I think, The Nun.
yes, yeah, I did see that.
So they always do really well with scary stuff. I really like both of them. But Mary Cat lives in a spacious house isolated from the adjacent village with her older sister, Constance.
She's also, like, in a ton of things too.
She is, yeah, and she's so pretty.
I
Isn't she,
know.
though?
Those eyes are gorgeous.
Mhm.
For real.
And they live with their uncle Julian, who's played by Crispin Glover.
And you know what? I was like, whenever I saw him, it was so funny because "Oh, who is that? Who is that?" The first thing I thought of was not Back to the Future, because obviously Back to the Future.
Mhm.
The first thing I thought of, Charlie.
Oh, God.
Well, that's another good one too.
That was
Sure.
the first thing I thought of. Because I used to be obsessed with Charlie's Angels when I was younger. I was so obsessed. I used to watch that so much, but that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, "Is that guy?" Not Back to the Future,
That
which
guy.
is another movie I literally love.
Not that guy.
Not that guy.
So Constance hasn't left their house in 6 years, only going as far as her garden. Uncle Julian, who is wheelchair bound, obsessively writes and rewrites notes for his memoirs while Constance looks after him. So 6 years ago, Constance and Mary Cat's parents, John and Ellen, their aunt Dorothy, and their younger brother Thomas died as a result of arsenic poisoning, which was put into the family's sugar bowl and dusted on their blackberries during dinner. Julian was also poisoned but survived. Mary Cat was not present at the time since she had been sent to bed without dinner as a punishment. Constance, the only person at the table who did not add sugar to her berries, was arrested and charged with murder, but was acquitted. And
So
go ahead.
I love how in the book, we don't learn that right away.
Right.
We get Mary Cat going into town, and the townspeople hate her. She's
Mhm.
making up stories about the family, like, she's telling us about all the different townspeople and why they hate her family and the different bad situations they've had with her family and how they tease her. And we go through, like, I would say, like, the full first section, like, of her in town. It's a full chapter, I think,
Mhm.
before she gets home, and we still don't know what's happened or
There's, like
why the townsfolk hate her and their
Yeah.
family.
Mhm.
And I really love that. And in the movie, they gave that away, like, within the first, like, 3 or 4 minutes. The
Mhm.
Mhm.
townspeople hate us because they think my sister killed my whole family. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
And there's, like,
okay.
a whole there's, like, so many possibilities of where the story could go within that first chapter. Like, you're like,
Yep.
"Alright, what is going on?" Like, she's, like, talking about all types of different things. She's even talking about, like, seeing, like, her mother's home, like, where her mother was born or
Mhm.
something.
Right.
And you're like, "Well, what is this gonna have to do with, like, later? Like, how is this gonna be relevant?" And things like that. And, like, I don't
It
know, there's just,
really
like, so many possibilities happening in the first chapter.
And it kind of left you wondering. It left you
Yeah.
wanting to keep reading because you're trying to figure out, well, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
What's happening? Why do the
Mhm.
townspeople hate them so much? And you don't really find out. Even she gets home and she's with her sister and Uncle Julian, they have dinner. Like, we don't find out until, like, the next day when someone comes to
Yeah.
visit
Mhm.
And you
what actually
feel
happened. You feel that anxiety of
Yeah,
it building, which is what kept me reading,
I
honestly.
know. Like, you
Yeah.
feel her panic of being like, "Alright, I have to do this. This is my routine, and I need to get home
Yep.
at this time and do, A, B, C, D, and if I get off the routine, something really bad's gonna happen." You're like, "Well, what's gonna happen? Like, what's gonna go
Yep.
down if we get
Mhm.
off the routine?"
And she
Mhm.
walks you through, like, if I take this path, then I walk in front of the general store, and if I go past the general store, then I'm probably gonna run into so and so, and so I don't wanna do that. I'll do
Mhm.
that on the way back, and I'll take the she's, like, walking you through her thought process of where she's going, and I don't know, like, I have anxiety, so I have, like, those moments all the time of, like, which route am I gonna take to go to the store? What's gonna be the most efficient? What are the chances of me running into this one? If I go there first, this place will be busy by the time I get there, like. And so you're learning her thought process of
Mhm.
mapping out how she's gonna do this, and
Mhm.
it's super identifiable, but also, like, you feel her anxiety as she's doing that. You know what I mean? Like that palpable feeling of that, a little bit of like dread, and it keeps building and building and building, and we don't really know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except the movie just told us right away, so now we know.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, so the town people believe that Constance got away with murder, so they shunned the whole family. In the movie, though, it is just the parents that are poisoned. They don't mention Uncle Julian's wife or their brother Thomas or anything. It's just the parents. So the 3 remaining Blackwoods have gotten accustomed to their isolation, and they live a calm, satisfied life. Mary Cat is the family's only contact with the outside world. She visits the village twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, bringing home groceries and library books. During these trips, she is confronted with the locals' hatred and is frequently insulted by groups of children with an incriminating rhyme about poisoned tea. Which is wrong anyway, it wasn't the tea, but let it slide. It's fine. Mary Cat is protective of her sister and practices sympathetic magic to keep borders around the house. And for those of you who don't know, sympathetic magic is founded on the notion that a person or thing can be supernaturally affected by its name or an object representing it. So she is often burying certain items, or she nails a book to a tree, which is another form of it. So you see that. Go ahead.
That's another thing, that in the book, they don't come out and tell us what she's doing. She doesn't come out and tell us what she's doing.
She's just
She
doing
just says,
it.
She says, I need to protect the house, or check my protections. I'm going to go check and make sure that the things that I buried or nailed or hung out or whatever she did with them. But in the movie, again, they come out with, she says, I have to make a spell. I have to do a spell.
And she says why she has to do it and stuff like that.
Right. And so again, in the book, we get a little bit more of that anxiety, because I think, again, people that have, anxiety issues in general have a tendency to have rituals, right? Like that make them feel a little bit better. And so at first you're like, oh, she's taking this path because that's her ritual. It makes her feel safer. But then she starts checking where she's like put things and stuff. And you go, wait a minute, what's going on? Like it really, but again, they don't come out and say witchcraft, spells. They don't say any of that in the book. We just have to kind of
go with the flow,
right, and kind of learn it as we go and be like, is this girl, like, what is she doing? But in the movie, they're like, oh, she's doing a spell. I'm going to do a spell now. It's like, oh, just tell us exactly what's happening. It's fine. I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
Thing left to the imagination. It's fine.
I will say I didn't hate the movie, but I loved the book for way different reasons.
That's fair. Yeah.
And in the movie, like, I thought it was, the way that the format is in the movie was really cool, because they actually start with the ending.
Yes.
In the movie, like, they just do a little snippet of the ending, and you're like, whoa, what is going on here? Like, the sister, like, Constance is, like, putting up a shelf or something, and, like, everything looks, like, really destroyed. And then all of a sudden it's going, like, it says, what does it say? Like, certain amount of days prior to that moment, and the way that it counts down throughout the movie was, like, really cool, and, like, just, like, the aesthetic of it was
and in
really
the book they kind of
neat.
did that, but it didn't hit as well as it did in the movie. The movie really beautifully set up that, like, 7 days ago, 6 days ago, 5, or however they did it, last Tuesday or whatever. And that was really well done in the movie.
Yeah, in the book, Mary Cat is just like, there's a change coming. I know it. But there's no indication, time frame when it's going to happen. Yeah. The movie did hit different. Constance only sees one family friend, Helen Clark, who comes to tea every week. Helen tries to persuade Constance that she should rejoin the outside world. And this not only frightens Mary Cat, it also enrages her. So she tries to use her magic to keep Constance from leaving. I think in the movie she buried a doll that their father had given Constance. It was the doll that never blinked or something.
I have a question because I'm really trying, like, I was trying to see if I made this up in my head or if I actually read this part because it's so up for interpretation, their past, that, like, we're making a lot of assumptions about their past. So I want to make sure I get this right. But I swear that whenever we're getting like the details of Constance, like whenever she was like put on quote like put on trial and stuff for being accused of like poisoning her family and things. I swear one of the reasons they were also accusing her was because she said something about her father. Too. Like, I swear it was, like it said something where it was, like, she said that she was happy that they had died.
That they
Something
deserved
like
it.
they deserved it,
Deserved
yeah.
it. Okay, okay. I was like, I wanted to make sure I didn't just make that up.
Yeah, no, she said that, but again, we have this unreliable narrator, so we don't necessarily know what actually happened at the trial.
Yeah.
Because it's actually Uncle Julian that mentions that happened at the trial.
Yeah.
Right, but through the narration of Mary Cat, so we don't really,
I also interpreted it as
he was like lying, like he was like embellishing it or something.
Well, because he even said, what was the line that he said? That it was basically like, make sure
I
if
do
something
well or
happens to me
something?
that somebody gets my
Right.
papers and that they won't be, not somebody who's going to be too interested in the truth or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he said, like, I think in this chapter, I'm going to open with a lie. I'm going to tell them my wife was beautiful.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's almost like he's trying to tell an interesting story, not the truth.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
I actually took it as Constance could have said that, but meant it as death was a good thing, that they deserved death as a reward, not as a punishment.
Yeah, because she did say at some point that, like, don't we all deserve death or something like that.
Something,
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So definitely up for interpretation.
There's so much that leaves you just kind of like,
yeah, like what the hell
wondering
happened?
what happened and kind of like, wait, it's like Keri said, did I make that up or did that actually what? Like,
Yeah.
Right. In the movie, Constance sends Mary Cat on an errand into town on Thursday,
which is not her day.
which is not her day to go to town.
Off the routine. And honestly, I was panicking.
I was too. I was like, what is happening here?
This is bad. This is not a good sign.
Don't do it. Don't go.
This is not a good sign.
So Mary Cat is concerned about going into town on the incorrect day and does not have time to check her magical defenses. So she returns to find that all of her wards have been unearthed. And before she can tell her sister, she is introduced to Charles, their distant cousin. Which, I like Sebastian Stan. Not
Everyone
a good
does.
choice. He was not a good choice for this.
No.
Charles quickly develops a close friendship with Constance and gains her trust. I'm waiting for comments.
I'm waiting for you to just say it.
Close friendship? That's putting it nicely.
It is.
It was getting a little incesty in here.
It was alluded to in the book. And
like
just
barely.
And it was more that Constance was, I don't want to say afraid to stand up to a man in the house, but it was more like maybe she wanted desperately to have a man in the house, someone else to take on this responsibility that she'd been carrying for so long. And so she was just really like, whatever he wants, if he's willing to take on all this craziness, like, let him have it. But in the, and so she kind of gave in to him a lot, and whatever you want, I'll keep you happy. Just keep him happy so he doesn't leave, kind of thing. But in the movie, like, flat out, they were like touching each other and holding each other and talking about running away together and like, whoa. I have some cousins that I would consider to be incredibly handsome, but I would never, ever, ever look at them like that. Like, we would never hold each other. I would never come into their room with they were just wrapped in a towel after a shower. Nope. Sorry. I just like done. It was just wrong. I wish they would, because I had not gone there in the book.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I really wasn't mentally going there at all. And then in the movie, I was like, is this supposed to be tension here?
No.
Because I'm
'Cause at first-
scared. I'm
yeah.
scared. And I want to go home. I'm scared.
At first, I thought it was just weird. Like, Constance doesn't know how to act, and that's kind of, you know what I mean, around this
Yeah.
new man in the house that seems to be taking over.
Mhm.
But also, like, yeah, there was no room for interpretation in the movie. That was definitely a romantic interest happening there, and that was just freaked me out. I did not like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Mary Cat is like, she is not about it. She is not about this man.
No.
And you know what? I was like looking up like a lot of theories about this. Like, why? And there's like a lot of assumptions here. Like, there's assumptions of like possible like abuse in the past, like
Mhm.
with
Right.
her father, and
Mhm.
he's taking over this father's role, her
Mhm.
father's role, wearing like his clothes and like doing all
Right.
this
And
stuff.
staying in his room. And
Yeah. And she is just, and also the fact trying to take away Constance in general.
Mhm.
Right.
And that especially comes into play a little later on in the story.
Yeah. And right
But-
before that, Constance was like singing, like, remember she was like singing like about leaving, or like in the movie, this wasn't really in the book, but in the movie she was singing about like going away, or like talking about Italy or something.
Right. I think what in the book, I started getting really mad when Charles showed up, because, like, leave it to a man to show up and ruin what is a perfectly fine household. Like, it might be weird, it might not be what everyone wants, but it's working for the people living there, and they're not
Mhm.
bothering anybody.
Mhm.
It's like Mary Cat says in the very beginning of the book, we never hurt anybody, we put things back where they belong.
Mhm.
Like, that was it. And here comes Charles, like, you can't do it like that. Why are you doing this? Why are you letting her get away with that? Why are you
Mhm.
letting Uncle Julian do this? You can't be like this. You could, like, don't tell us what to do in our own home. Get your ass out. Like,
And we all know he's not there for the right reason.
mm-mm. I was heated in the
Mhm.
book. I was like, this man's got to go.
Mhm.
Like,
Also, the uncle. Okay, so the uncle in the book, I liked him in the book, but in the movie was kind of cracking me up. Like, people would just be
Mhm.
trying to have a conversation, and he'd be like, "So I'm thinking for my book, what about for this scene?" And it was literally killing me.
I think that's thinking I start chapter 45 with.
Yeah, like
Yep.
nobody's like paying attention to him, and he's like, for chapter 45, I'm thinking I'm gonna say, and everyone's like, dude, chill.
Yes,
we
Uncle Julian.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
Uncle Julian.
Yeah, we'll
Here's
get
a
right on that.
biscuit.
Great idea.
Here's a biscuit.
Here's your box.
Like,
Put all your stuff in. We'll get to you later.
why don't we roll you out into the garden for a little while? Like,
Let's put you in the sun. Poor Uncle Julian.
Poor Uncle Julian.
So Charles is aware that Mary Cat's resentment. He's aware of Mary Cat's resentment. This really got me in the book, because he starts talking to Jonas the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mary Cat's not there. Jonas, I think Mary Cat doesn't like me. I was like, boy, don't talk about me like I'm not sitting right here.
I know. And Jonas was so much in the book. Not enough Jonas in the movie.
Agreed.
For real.
Obviously.
Not enough Jonas.
Mm-hmm. I was really glad. It's not really a spoiler, but nothing happens to Jonas. He makes it. So
Mhm. I was concerned.
I was too.
I was scared.
Good Girl's Guide. Look
Yeah.
at you.
We've had a rough couple of months on animals, so let's.
Yeah. We're traumatized.
It's nice to see one live.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mary Cat doesn't like Charles. So Charles just becomes increasingly disrespectful to her, as well as angry with Julian and his illness. He frequently mentions the money the sisters have locked in their father's safe and gradually builds an alliance with Constance, persuading her to leave her family. And Merrycat considers Charles as a threat, obviously, and tries a variety of magical methods to drive him out of the house, including vandalizing his room and his belongings and speaking to him only in descriptions of poisonous plants.
Honestly,
I love that.
that's some petty shit that I love.
Yep.
Mhm.
I mean, because like Charles was like for real saying things like, "How are you gonna feel when she sends you off? When she
Mhm.
sends you away? She's gonna send you away, you know. Like I'm gonna help her. We're gonna get you out of here. Like a month from now, when it's just me and Constance, how are you gonna like?" He was just being a jerk, and
Mm-hmm.
so when she was all like, you know, I can't remember the names of the mushrooms, the Amanita, whatever. And he was all like, shut up. And I was like, keep going, girl. Keep going, girl.
I just like how Constance was just like, "Oh yeah, I taught her that."
Yep.
And Uncle Julian for chapter 45. Like, and there was a scene, like, I think they did this so well in the movie where they were all sitting, like, at the table for dinner, and she's, like, the cousin is getting, like, really annoyed at Merricat because she keeps, like, saying all, like, the poisonous mushrooms and stuff, and, Constance is, like, really trying to, like, quote, "keep the peace," but, like, she's just basically, like, just trying to make sure everybody's, like,
Mm-hmm.
happy in, like,
Mhm.
the worst way,
Yep.
and
And she never
and
stops smiling the whole
she
time.
doesn't, she's like a
The whole time.
robot, like, she's very much, like, just,
Stepford
like
wife.
Yep,
yeah,
for what
and
exactly.
then so they're, like, going back and forth, and then across the table, the uncle is just kind of, "So, I'm thinking for chapter 45, I'm gonna do this." Everyone's just like, "Oh my gosh," it was so chaotic, like, so much
Yep.
anxiety, and it was too much, but it in, like, the best way where it was just, like it just kept escalating and building, and it was really good.
It was so stressful, but it was so good.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was, like, perfect compared to, like, the book.
Mhm. But not only does Merrycat not like Charles, Uncle Julian doesn't like him either.
No.
Does not trust him at all.
No, it's like
At all.
mm-mm.
But again, Charles is over here trying to get rid of Uncle Julian. He's like, he should be in a home. He's just over there making a mess of himself. Why are you taking care of this old man? You're not doing him any favors by keeping him here. Like, so yeah, Uncle Julian hates him. Like, he's trying to kick me out of my house.
Mhm.
And even he knows that Charles is only there for the money.
Yep.
Because whenever the cousin first comes, he's like talks about something, he refers to something about how there's like money on the property or something. Like he's like really upset that there's money on the property somewhere, and then he finds that they have a big safe or something with a bunch of
Yeah.
money.
And
Constance was going to send Charles to town to pick up groceries and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, I'll give you some money." And he was like, "What, you keep money here in the house?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, father didn't trust banks." So,
Yeah, so and
yep.
that's when his like the gears start turning for
mm,
him.
mhm. And then one night before dinner, Constance sends Merrycat upstairs to wash her face and hands, and Charles threatens to punish her. So Merrycat throws everything on his desk, including his lit pipe, into the wastebasket.
Oh no. Don't. I was like, get him, girl.
And Merrycat comes back downstairs, and in the movie, she argues with Charles, and Charles actually attacks her.
Yeah. That
Yeah, I
I
didn't
did
know
not
where
see
that
it
was
coming.
going.
I
I was
was
scared.
I got scared.
Yeah,
That
I was
was
not expecting that. Mm-mm.
that was
Well,
not in the book.
he does attack her, but it doesn't get I mean, it does get bad, but it doesn't get like I thought it was gonna go really far, and I was like, "Let's
Right.
not do this. Can we not do this right
Yeah.
now?" But it doesn't. It doesn't get
He just like drags her up the stairs
yeah.
like wrestling with her to like control and drag her,
Yeah.
and like pulling at her arms and grabbing her, kind of wrestling type thing. He doesn't like full on punch her in the face or anything.
Yeah.
But like it's still, she's screaming. Constance is frozen in terror. Uncle Julian starts to get up, but he's wheelchair bound, so he can't. And he just
he's
sits
like
there
really
listening.
freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, he's freaking out over America. Like, he's concerned.
But he can't get up.
Yeah.
So he's just sitting at the table, and you can see it in his, like, Crispin Glover really pulled this off so well.
He did.
This, like, realizing that, like, I can't help, and I just have to sit here and listen to what's happening. And you, like, it was kind of a, I don't know, I don't want to say a beautiful moment, a humbling moment, kind of, like, just watching that reaction on his face, and then, of course, Catherine just following and chasing, but unable to do anything because she can't even speak. She's not screaming. She's just frozen.
Yeah, I was like, I was like shocked that Constance wasn't like helping her sister. Like, she was actually not. She was kind of just like
she was terrified,
shocked. Yeah,
and she went straight into like freeze. That like fawn, fight, flight, fawn, freeze. She froze.
Yeah,
and she'd been fawning the whole time. Whatever you want, Charles. Well, I'll make you happy. And she went straight to frozen. And here's Mary Cat fighting for her freaking life.
Yeah,
I'll bring it back up a little later.
Okay.
But as to why Constance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and why Mary Cat does fight back.
Yeah.
And the result of that. So I'll bring it back up towards the end because I don't want to ruin anything.
No, I'm excited about that part. I have a lot to say on it too. So
Charles does stop when he begins to smell smoke, because at this point he's already basically up the stairs where Mary Cat had gone to wash her hands. So he smells smoke, and it turns out that the pipe that Mary Cat pushed into the wastebasket has caused a fire. And Charles, in the book, Charles shows up without a car. He just, I don't know if he walked there.
Yeah, because they talk about him getting through the gate and walking down the trail. Yeah.
And when he leaves to go get help for the fire, he runs into town screaming. And in the movie, he brings this fancy, expensive sports car. So Charles does leave to go get help, and the townspeople arrive to help put out the fire. But then they release their long repressed resentment on the Blackwoods by vandalizing and destroying the house. And this part
made me emotional.
Was so difficult.
Yep.
It was really hard to watch.
In the book and in the movie, it had me just tore up.
Yeah.
It was a rough one.
And Mary Cat and Constance run into the woods after being attacked by the locals. Luckily and unluckily, the townspeople do stop and let them go, but it's only after they discover that Uncle Julian has died of, in the book, he died of heart failure. And in the movie specifically, he dies of smoke inhalation. So,
and we see in the movie, like, he chooses his room
to stay in there
and like locks himself in. And the sisters tried to go and like find him and try to get him out and tries to get him out of his room, but he locks himself in his room with like all of his, like, he has like all the pictures,
the newspaper clippings, and
the original when everyone had died.
In the book, it just seemed like Constance moved him into his room and then just left him there.
Yeah. That was the vibe we were getting.
He was going to go get his papers.
And she assumed he was safe, too, because the fire was upstairs and he was downstairs.
Right. Which was a little, like, I don't want to say that because I guess ditzy. And I hate this in any female character that shows that they were smart and intelligent throughout the book, to randomly have this, like, ditz moment. And they're like, well, the fire's upstairs, so everything downstairs is going to be fine. We can just stay down here. And in fact, they stayed in the movie, they stayed in the house. In the
Mhm.
book, they stay like in the curtains, kind of on the porch type thing
On the
near the
front
house.
porch behind the vines.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, so they're staying, you know,
It's like a
near on the
big
structure. It's a huge house.
it's like a
It's a
manor.
manor house, yeah. But like,
So,
you should probably just leave the property.
yeah.
Also, I feel like Cousin Charles like dipped real fast when he discovered there was a fire, instead of like even like, do I even want to attempt to put out the fire that's just contained to this room at the moment?
Oh yeah, he didn't try at all.
He didn't try at
No.
all. He just, I'm gonna run and get help. Everybody get out of here.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, he would I remember I don't remember this in the book, or well, I'm assuming there's a reason why it was in the book, but in the movie, he specifically would kept like getting mad at them because they didn't have like a phone.
They mentioned it once in the book, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't have a phone in their house and stuff. So he knew he had to like see ya
right.
and get some help because they couldn't call anybody.
Mhm. But also I don't think it was, I mean, they mentioned it once in the movie, but in the book, when he gets back to the house with the townspeople and the firemen, he keeps yelling, "Get the safe, get the safe."
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Help me with
Yep.
the safe. Somebody, there's a safe in the other room. Let's get the safe.
Mhm. In the
Like, dude,
movie,
it's obvious you're trying to get their money.
yeah,
Mhm.
in the movie, I think he was actually trying to open the safe instead of
Yeah.
having them get the actual safe out. But well, that night, Mary Cat and Constance seek refuge under a tree that Mary Cat has transformed into a hideaway. Which, if I had that as a kid, that would be awesome. 'Cause
Yeah.
For real.
in the book, it sounded like a really cool little hideaway. They didn't make it as cool in the movie because I thought it was like a cave in the book.
Mhm.
Yeah. They made it sound like she had like, I don't know, like a shed or a cave or something, like a really cool
Mm-hmm.
place to go. It was really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, it was just like a blanket under a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the next day, Constance reveals that she always knew Mary Cat was the one who poisoned the family. And in the
Mhm.
movie, she expresses gratitude that Mary Cat saved her from their wicked father.
Mhm.
So this goes back to when Charles was attacking Mary Cat and Constance didn't do anything. Mary Cat has always been her savior.
Yeah. And in
And
the book, it's like it's really not super clear on why Mary Cat did this. Like it's not
because she was sent to bed without her supper, she was being punished. And she
Mhm.
didn't like that. So she
Mhm.
killed them.
I think it is hinted at that the
That
father
her dad was
was
a bad man.
abusive.
Yeah.
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 That's the interpretation I took from it, was that the
Yeah.
father was abusive.
The father was
And
abusive. That's how I took it. And that the mother was cold
Mhm.
and I don't want to say unresponsive, maybe. She was very, because they mention her a few times in the book, like wanting nice things and not wanting to share with certain people and how you're
Mhm.
supposed to act, and very like, and Mary Cat was this precocious child, and potentially Constance was being abused by her husband, and like the mom was very just kind of like cold.
yeah, especially because she has such like a crazy reaction, like such a strong reaction to the cousin coming,
Mm-hmm.
just from his appearance coming.
Yep.
Like it not even like he doesn't even have to
And
speak.
and they mention in the book that he looks just like their father.
Exactly. So that's why I'm like, that's why I feel like that could be
And Uncle
what it
Julian
is.
calls him John
Right.
a
Yeah.
lot.
Oh yeah.
I think it's really interesting how we see that not only was Mary Cat trying to protect Constance from, their family by the initial poisoning, but also like being the one who's willing to go to town and get things, making sure that Constance doesn't have to answer the door when people come to the door, like the doctor who comes to visit Uncle Julian, or like, so Mary Cat protects Constance, but Constance also protects Mary Cat,
Mhm.
knowing that, Mary Cat is precocious and different and weird, but
Mhm.
allows her to have those quirks, those, oddities,
Mhm.
and doesn't let other people kind of trample on her. And then, of course, took the blame for the death of the family, like was never once giving her up, so this sister bond is really
Yeah.
awesome.
That's why I think
Creepy, but awesome.
That's why I think that because she took the blame too, that's why I think that Mary Cat did it to help her or
Yes.
something, to
Yep.
protect her.
Yep.
That's why I think that might be also the case as well.
Yep.
Also, like you said, she, Constance would always protect Mary Cat because like the cousin would always get really mad when he would find all the buried stuff
Mhm.
everywhere and like freak out about it, and she would just be like, it's no big deal, it's fine, like that's just her stuff,
Right.
that's what she does. And like the silver dollars, and he was like freaking out because it's like that's
You
like
can't
money, or the
bury
watch
money. Yeah. Like it's
and
worth
stuff.
something. You can't
Yeah.
just yeah. And Constance is over there like, dude, it's just stuff. Who cares? Keeps her
Mhm.
happy. It's not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mary Cat does admit that she was the one who poisoned the family. And she claimed that the reason she put the poison in the sugar bowl was because she knew Constance wouldn't use the sugar.
Mhm.
And Constance and Mary Cat return to their ruined home and they recover what remains of their belongings. They close off rooms that are too damaged to use, and they basically begin their lives in the limited space available to them. And the house, now without a roof, looks like a castle turreted to open to the sky. So this is now
For
the
real, a
castle.
castle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Which I did like the cat I say castle, but the estate that they used in the movie I thought was a
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good representation.
I
Yeah, it
think so
looked
too.
good.
I was curious how they were going to do it.
Yeah.
And in the book, Constance and Mary Cat spend a lot of time looking outside through peepholes hidden by vines that grew to cover the house. And the townspeople begin to feel regret for their actions. So they start leaving food on the doorstep, and they start creating these stories about the house and the sisters. Charles does come back with a journalist, but only once. And he does attempt to reestablish his connection with Constance, but she does ignore him in the book.
Mhm.
Mhm.
In the movie, it looks like Constance starts to answer, but she does kind of stop herself, and Charles breaks into the house. Mary Cat bludgeons him to death with a snow globe, and then they bury him in the garden.
I really, I feel like this does a disservice to Constance's character. I feel like it does a disservice to her character because it made it seem like Merricat makes the decision for her. Like
Yeah.
in the book, I felt like Constance like finally was like, "This is like I'm making this decision and I'm
Yeah.
standing up for myself," kind of thing, and I'm not gonna answer like to him anymore. And
Right.
in the movie, it felt like she was like one step away from like giving in and talking to him
Mhm.
again. And if it wasn't for Mary Cat, she would have.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was going to pick Charles over Mary Cat in the movie.
Again.
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't
Yep.
like that either.
I didn't like how they did that. And I think it was for like dramatic effect, I'm assuming. But
I will say that as someone who is a caretaker, I really did identify with Constance in that I think Charles appealed to her feeling trapped. Like, yes, she's agoraphobic. She's afraid of the town. The townspeople gave her a reason to be afraid of them. But she is stuck in this house with her invalid uncle and her wackadoo little sister. and she's keeping this balance. Like, she makes all of their meals. They don't order out. They have, books from the library and records from the library, but they don't get to go shopping for their own books. She doesn't get to travel. She doesn't have anybody to come in, and she's afraid of letting people into the house because they've given her a reason to be afraid. So she's Charles appealed to that, like, you're trapped here. I can help free you. I can help take away this stress from you and give you joy again. And so, like, I understand why Constance was tempted by that. I understand why he played into those, because, like, there is a little bit of resentment in every caretaker. They don't, like, just because we're resentful of our situation doesn't mean we don't love the people we're taking care of, but nobody chooses that. You know what I mean? Nobody chooses to be stuck and trapped there. And Cousin Charles really played into those and really helped to feed those resentments and feed those negative feelings. And so I understand why she was tempted. But I think you're right, Keri. I think in the movie they did her a disservice, her character a disservice, by making it look like she was ready to choose Cousin Charles over her own sister, because no caretaker would do that. No loving, family member would ever make that choice. We might want to for a little bit to go away or to have a break or to seek some respite, but we would never give up the ones that we love for ourselves. There's not a selfish bone in people who do that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. And I think it also made, like, Meerkat look much more scary
yes.
and much more controlling.
Yeah.
At least,
Yes.
I mean, she's already a little scary, but it made it, like, times 100 than what she is in the book. Like, the book was giving me, like, at the end, like, this, like, I mean, it's not warm and fuzzy by any
No.
means, but for my, like, weird little heart, it's giving warm and fuzzy because, like, for the dark and twisted girls out there, because it's just like all, like, the townspeople are, like, almost leaving their own little, like, talisman and, like, all these things
All the little
at
offerings
all
and
the little
yep.
offerings at the house because of the two sisters that live at this, like, house that's, like, kind of destroyed. Or, like, at the very end of the movie, there's these kids, like, yelling,
Mm-hmm.
taunting at the house, like, "Oh, we're not gonna see the sisters, like, you're not gonna see them, they're not gonna come out." Like, it's almost like it's haunted by these two sisters, and they're
Yep.
taunting the house, and then she opens the door, and she's out there, and they're, like, running away,
Right.
like, because they're terrified. And it's just like, I don't know, like, I just love that so much, and I was like, "Okay, we didn't need to do all that at the end. It's fine, whatever."
I also loved in the book, I feel like Mary Cat was precocious. Mary Cat was, I don't want to say she was innocent. She killed her family. But I don't think she necessarily realized entirely what she was doing when she did it. Because even throughout the book, she talks about, I should be nicer to Uncle Julian. I should be nicer to Uncle Julian. Almost like she regretted it. And he survived. So now I need to be nice to him.
Well, that means she would have been 12
Right.
when she did it.
Exactly. So I'm not saying that she didn't know what she was doing, but she definitely, I don't think, was aware of the consequences of what she was doing.
Mhm.
And in her head, she was doing it for the right reasons. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, but, like, she hadn't hurt anybody since then. She'd gone into town who knows how many times. She even said, we don't hurt anybody. We've never hurt anybody, you know? And so in the book, I kind of felt like here was this kid who made a horrid mistake before they knew what they were doing and was just a weird kid. But in the movie, she was creepy AF. She was like,
Yeah.
like wackadoo. I would not let that child go into town by herself. She would
I
not.
loved first of all, I loved her wardrobe.
Right. That
Loved her
was,
wardrobe. I loved the way she walked. The
yep.
way she walked was crazy, and I
Yep.
loved it.
Like,
Like, she
super
just
stiff,
yeah,
super, like,
and she had, like
yeah.
she was, like, kinda leaned over and was, like the way that she walked was just, like I don't know, I just, like, loved her character. her character was just like
they were very
weird.
different from the book and the movie, I think.
She was just
but
weird.
not in a bad way. Like each one was great in its own way.
Yeah, I can't describe it. I don't know why. Like this book and this movie, like it doesn't make sense and it's strange, but it's like very good.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it's rated. Like it's not rated PG-13 or anything like that. It's not even rated. It's an unrated movie. Like I tried to look it up. Yeah.
Oh.
And I don't know. I can't even describe it. I wouldn't even be able to describe it to someone, or like I wouldn't even know how to recommend it. But I just really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good. I recommended something that everyone liked.
It's honestly a miracle.
It's a miracle.
It is. So yeah, final verdict. If you want just solely Mary Cat's perspective, just stick with the book. If you want to get a little bit more from each character, watch the movie.
Yeah.
All in all, do both because
Do both.
Really good.
Yeah, they are really good. I like both of them.
And it's not a super, super long book. I think.
No, it's short. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good one. I
Okay.
recommend.
Well, with that, we will get into our question of the episode. In the end, Mary Cat and Constance were stuck with the last library books that they checked out. If you only had access to the last book or series you were reading, what are you stuck with, Crystal?
Well, I decided because I don't want to be stuck with the last books that I read. I really don't. But I have a stack of books that are my physical TBR that I feel like that would be, to be stuck with these would not be bad. It's by India Holt. I have the Ornithologist Field Guide to Love because that cover is gorgeous. And I love birds. That's what ornithologists are. They study birds. So the Ornithologist Field Guide to Love, and by the same author, the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels.
Yeah, I heard that was really good.
I've heard it's really good. It's a series, so if I got stuck with that, I wouldn't be mad. And then I have The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, which is all a buzz everywhere. And I read the first couple of pages, but I was in so many other books. I was like, no, this one's going to deserve some real attention. So I stopped. And then Remarkably Bright Creatures. So that's my physical TBR that I'd be stuck with for the rest of eternity. And I don't think it's a bad one. So
very pretty.
Yeah. They're so aesthetically pleasing.
They really are. It's a lovely stack.
Yeah. The House of Cerulean Sea is really good. I love that book.
Is it? Yeah. I read the first couple of pages and I was like, I'm going to need to stop so that I can actually really immerse myself in this book.
Yeah. It has like a little bit of everything. It's like super cute, but also like really funny. Like I have like a million tabs in that book.
And I don't know if it's a series or if there are just more books with the same characters.
It has a second book. It's in the series, but there are other books
in that world.
I don't know if it's in the same world. They all have like similar looking covers.
They do,
by
yeah.
TJ Klune. So I'm not sure if they're in the same world, but there is a second book after that one.
So we'll be checking that out.
Yeah.
What about you, Keri?
The one I'm gonna be stuck with, if I'm literally only stuck with the one I'm currently reading, is The Player Next Door by K.A. Tucker. Which is the one I'm reading on my Kindle right now. I don't want to be stuck with that, honestly. I think it's like a duology or something, but I don't think it's a continuous series. Like it's about two different couples. But it's like it's good, but like imagine reading that over and over again.
Right?
That would not be fun.
That's why I didn't want to be stuck with the last one I read.
It's a very like basic romance. I mean, it is good. It's like a very basic romance, and it's about let me explain. It's about these two this boy and girl were together when they were in high school, okay? But he broke up with her, and then he went and dated her her arch nemesis that used to like bully her. Okay?
No.
Betrayed her. So then she left town, gone for years. Okay, comes back. And she's like, okay, I'm moving back to my hometown. Moves in. He's her neighbor. And he has a kid with the bully. But they've been broken up for like years and years and years. Like the kid's like 10 years old. And she's also a teacher. And the kid's in her class. So it's, that guy is going to be around all the time now. And she has resentment toward, and he's trying to win her back. Drama.
I'm telling you.
So much drama. But once you know about it, it's like, okay, well, now I know all the drama. I don't want to read it again.
There's about no being
twists
embarrassed.
And turns.
I guess I'm stuck with Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer.
Listen, you guys, you can't do that. Listen, I got a whole stack of books over here.
Okay, Lindsey, when you said that, you're like, I already told Keri when I was reading. I was like, wait, what did she tell me? I literally cannot remember. Oh my gosh, I forgot you said you were going to start reading that.
Yes, I kind of said it in passing like a week ago.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on that. That's hilarious. That's going to be great.
So, just like that, our time at Blackwood Estate has come to an end. But don't worry, we've locked the gates behind us. And now we want to hear from you. Let us know your answer to our question of the episode. If you enjoyed this discussion, be sure to follow Based on a Book on all socials. Subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. It helps more than Charles pretending to be charming.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be back next week with our last March mystery. So until then, maybe don't take sugar from strangers. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.